Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be using this raw shell oil to make a mermaid for Delightful's tropical collab. As usual, I cut off all her hair before cutting off her ears and removing the hair from the inside of the head. Just to make it easier for myself, I cut a slit in the back of the head to remove the hair plugs. Because I didn't want my mermaid to be gray, I decided to take some acrylic paint, water it down, and paint it all over her head and body. I figured my mermaid should be tan, seeing as she would be swimming through tropical waters and probably sunbathing. It took a few layers for the paint to become opaque, however I think it was worth it and it turned out really smooth. You can see I tried to paint her legs too, but I decided in the end not to bother, seeing as I would be removing most of them anyway to make the mermaid tail. Speaking of which, I pulled out my fancy new Dremel, made some marks on her legs before hacking off the lower calves. I later knocked off the knees too, just because I figured I wouldn't need them if most of the tail was going to be wire anyway. Unlike what I did, charge your Dremel before you plan on working with it, because I had been working with my Dremel all morning to sculpt, and it was kind of running low on battery at that point. I then took my Dremel and drilled a hole into each thigh where a wire would sit. These wires will form the base of the skeleton. I secured each wire into its hole using tacky glue before wrapping them around each other to form the base. I had left her thighs in place to prevent having a wobbly hip joint, and I have to say this worked out very successfully. If I had removed the thighs, I wonder now if she would be hard to pose or to make sit. To form the shape of the tail, I decided to use paper towels and tissues. Layer by layer, I built up the shape of the tail, securing each piece of paper towel with some tape. I decided I should sculpt any clay accessories now, that way when I had to sculpt it to the body, I didn't have to work around the large fins as well. I decided I wanted her top to be made out of 2 barnacles and a starfish, so I got to sculpting. I started with a semi-sphere of clay, which I pressed into using my dotting tool. I played around with the shapes a bit before pressing into it and forming the ridges using my carving knife. Then I pressed each of the shapes to the chest to make sure they would each fit perfectly. I ended up making the starfish off screen just because I found it a little more difficult to sculpt. Then I painted the barnacles a base coat of gray and the starfish a base coat of orange. I'm really proud of how the starfish came out. I think it turned out pretty cute. After all the base coats were dry, I decided to dry brush everything. While the clips are running, I would like to take this moment to thank Delightful for hosting this huge collaboration. I heard there were over 4,000 entries, which is insane. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the slideshow and, of course, Delightful's video. You are all amazingly talented, and it was really, really great. I just wish I had been able to get this video up a little sooner. Back to what's on screen, I decided to paint Rochelle's original ears to look a little more fin-like. Of course, they have to match the rest of her, which is going to be outrageously bright and filled with neon colors. Now that we're done with the accessories, I decided to take some cotton fabric and paint it with acrylics to form her tail and fins. To force the cotton to behave and shape correctly to her hips, I cut into it using my fabric scissors. Next, it was time to secure the fins, so I wrapped them around the wire and secured them with tacky glue, pressing each fin to remove any air bubbles. Next, I decided to give the fins a jagged cut just to look a little more natural. To mimic bright and bold patterns on tropical fish, I decided to take some acrylic paint and just dot out the green, spreading it from her fins all the way up to her hips. Last couple steps were pretty easy to complete the body. All I had to do was glue some clay pieces onto her chest and then glue some fins to the sides of her hips. Wait up folks, this was a really long project. Too long to fit into one video, in fact, so I have the second part linked below. I tried to upload this video all in one, however it ended up way too long and my editing program kept crashing, and yada yada yada, a lot of Instagram rants later. Here we are, deciding it's going to be a two-part video. So the second part is linked down below, go check that out. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!